This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Hey guys, before we jump into the episode, I wanted to let you know it is brought to you by the NMFTA. Let me ask you a question. Do you ship LTL freight? Then listen up, because the NMFC changes went live on July 19th, and they're the biggest updates in the history of freight classification. Now more than ever, accuracy matters. That's why carriers, shippers, and brokers alike are turning to Class IT Plus, the NMFTA's new digital platform for real-time NMFC data. Stop guessing, start classifying smarter, and quote freight with confidence. It's time to get your ship together because the NMFC changes are already here. Learn more at nmfcchanges.com and get started with Class IT Plus at classitplus.com. Just do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you. Is up, everybody. We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Thursday, everybody. We are back on topic with everything vetting, fraud prevention, all of this stuff, because it's going to be continuously coming at us here for the unfortunate foreseeable future. And there's a lot of tools that are at your disposal right now. And most importantly, we want to talk about how you can protect yourself and your business. So I want to welcome Mr. Joe Orr and Todd Florence on the show today. Joe, Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Now, so Todd, let's start with you, since this is the first time on your show. I'm going to just lead it right in. I always like doing this with new guests. And, how'd you get your start in freight? Like, what brought you into transportation?
Oh, well, that's a bit of an interesting story. So I had probably 20 years of consulting in lots of other industries, none of it in freight, and ended up starting here at Estes in May of 2020, right? Okay. So I started right in the heart of COVID. So everything I know about freight is in this crazy post-COVID world, right? Like from a working experience perspective. I, quite frankly, happened to know my predecessor here at Estes Express Lines. He was leaving to pursue other opportunities and made an introduction. Coming in, I didn't think it was going to be nearly as complicated as it is, nor as fun as it's been. So I've had lots of fun over the last 6 years here at Estes, and have learned a ton about LTL in the industry and kind of everything going on ever since.
Yeah, so you've essentially came in right at the time when the Band-Aid was ripped off on everything, and you've only known chaos. So there's trial by I like trial by fire, like it's the only way to really learn and grasp.
Well, and it's made it a lot of fun. And I mean, with all the topics we're going to talk about today, like one of the things that's interesting, right, is you've almost seen a technology revolution in freight since about COVID, because the industry had a lot of work to do to be able to meet everybody's demands and needs, and particularly deal with a lot of trials and tribulations over that last 6 years as well. So it's been a ton of fun and a lot of learning.
Yeah, that's I think we're at such a unique time in the industry where it is like the digital revolution is like finally catching up to where it needs to be. And then especially now, I look at it where you have to protect your digital infrastructure at such a higher level now than I think most people even, could comprehend just a couple of short years ago. And I think the thing is now is everybody is at risk, right? Like there's not just large companies that are going to be exposed to, double brokering, fraud, identity theft, all like they're coming for everything right now. And that's what I love the most about like what we're talking about today. And then what the NMFTA is doing as a whole, where it's like, hey, you guys, we got to educate, like we all got to get on the same page, because companies of all sizes here need the same resources to fight this. And collectively as an industry is like, we have to come up with a solution. I think like, I would love for bureaucracy to work in our favor, but bureaucracy takes a long time. And that's where the private sector can come in and make moves at a faster level.
Absolutely. Well, and you're absolutely right too. Like we used to think of it as big companies or financial services companies or those sorts of things. Like you've got international threat actors, localized threat actors, like they're doing all kinds of stuff. And like primarily it's to make money. But then when you get into these areas of political disruption and global economic disruption, right? Like then they're starting to attack entire industries. Mm-hmm. And it's with a lot of the partnership with NMFTA and the folks that Joe has over there is really targeted at the crux of that problem, right? Like how do we share information more efficiently? How do we band together just like they band together to kind of attack us? It's how do we work together to help prevent as much as we can? And when we can't prevent, how do we do it to recover as quickly as possible?
Yeah. And, so Joe, you guys, the last time you were on, we were talking about the freight fraud hub that was being created and released, and it's up and running right now. And you guys have kind of taken that. You guys have a ton of great information that's on there, but, you guys are in the process of like with reporting a lot of this data and like a lot of the situations that people are going through, excuse me.
Right. That really started about 2.5 years ago. In fact, I attended a conference. I was new to NMFTA. I'd only been here a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of weeks at that point. And we're at a conference talking about cybersecurity. And the person that was supposed to speak on behalf of NMFTA ended up having an emergency and having to leave. So they're like, hey, can you speak on the panel? And I didn't have an agenda. So I was like, yeah, can I speak on whatever with the panel? And it kind of just transitioned into, hey, why don't we communicate more? When someone gets hacked, why don't you tell your story? And I asked the question, I go, how many people in here utilize the same software, the same TMS? The same things within your infrastructure. How many share that? And they all raised their hand. So I said, so would you benefit knowing that, hey, someone over here got impacted by a hack? And they're like, yeah. Then I said, well, why don't you share the information? Why be embarrassed? And so what we've seen in the last 2 years is people being more willing to come out and share their story, like Todd and like Estes. And so then this year at our cyber conference, we started to talk about, well, where can we share our story real time? So, Todd gave an example that I still remember. He stood up and said, hey, if someone is impacted by a bad actor and I know about it and I know how they got in and I can learn that lesson from them, I don't have to learn that lesson. How can they share that story so that I'm not impacted? We all need to do that. And so Todd and I have talked several times since that. And it's like, we need a place to report this information. And sometimes the carrier does not want to put their name, and that's fine. But we need to be able to share that information. So we did design a new website, the NMFTA Threat Portal, where a carrier, a broker, a shipper can go in and say, hey, I have been impacted by this cyber event, and provide some information. Here's how they got in. Here's who it was. Here's what they were asking for. And what that does is then other people who have signed up for it, what they do is they agree to share information, but in return, they receive this information. And what that does is no one has time to pick up the phone and call their peers and say, hey, I'm going to call the 20 people that I work with and let them know, because they're too busy working the issue. this allows this information to share so that people feel protected. And we're going to do this on both the cyber side, but also the freight fraud side, with a special focus on cyber-enabled freight fraud. So Todd, I'll let you speak a little bit to it also, because you were, integral in part of these discussions.
Well, I'm happy to, but Chris, you look like you have a question. So
No. I'll let you run with that, because it was you'll probably answer it in what I was going to ask.
Right. So sometimes I'm a little more direct than Joe is too. Like I've been on panels with Joe and said, in the industry, if you think like protecting or if you think your cyber information or your threat actor information is your competitive advantage in the industry, I probably think you're a scumbag, right? Like because it's all of us trying to protect one another, right? Like nobody benefits by somebody having a breach that impacts their operations. So like I go a little bit further than Joe in that when we're having these conversations, I get it. People don't always want attribution. People feel like it's a scarlet letter or they failed. We see millions of cyber event alerts a week, right? We have 24,000 employees at Estes. Lots of them have email. Like we have, you talk about this concept of a human firewall. They're getting phone calls, they're getting emails, they're getting text messages, all these things. Somebody's going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't lead to a data breach all the time. Thankfully, it doesn't lead to systems getting shut down. But the quicker we can share that information and more openly we can share that information, fine, take the attribution off of it, the better we can all prepare. So I've been on these panels with Joe and I've shared things we see in our environment, right? Being a large carrier, we tend to be a bit more of a target just because we've got a bigger surface area. So the more of that I can share, whether it's a small carrier or a large carrier, those sorts of things, the better we can all protect one another. So the partnership with NMFTA and the portals, it's not just like, oh my God, I had a breach, they got my data, there was ransomware, there's all this stuff. Like the other intent of this too is we've had examples lately, social engineering's ever since the war in Iran started, social engineering attempts have gone through the roof. Right. So I've been sharing that at a couple of conferences, a couple other environments where they're either trying to send text messages and impersonate executives. They're calling people and impersonating the service desk. They're calling the service desk and impersonating employees. And I want my peers to know that, because as opposed to it being academic, it's real. We see it every day. And I want them to understand things they can do to protect themselves. And the more we talk about it and the more we share ideas, it's kind of like the old days of software, right? Like when they started open sourcing software got better. Yeah. Well, this is a way we can all get better, because you're going to get attacked. You're going to have some level of breach. Like all these things are going to happen and we all kind of accept it. And the more that we talk about it and the more that we'll be open about it, the better we can protect the industry as a whole.
Yeah. Now, do you see higher, you brought up the social engineering with the conflict in Iran that has started. Do you guys see any direct correlations to global conflicts and an increase in cyber threats to the United States during those times?
You do. You saw it, but sorry, Joe. We've seen it both during the incidents in Ukraine and now with Iran, because threat actors that align with geopolitical concerns, we'll call it, start thinking of things like, how can I disrupt the United States' ability to react to these things globally? And unfortunately, I guess for us, they target core infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. So they see it in energy, and you see it in the supply chain, because if they can disrupt things that the U.S. military or the U.S. government needs, it helps their concerns overseas. Right. Yeah. Like, and the groups are amorphous. They're always hard to track. It's, you can't find the exact people, but there's usually some form of alignment somewhere. So you see those things go up. And then fortunately and unfortunately, in the last couple of years, the pace of progress on the technology side with agentic AI and LLMs and all those sorts of things. It used to be you'd get that goofy phishing email and there'd be 3 misspelled words and the URL would look really weird. No, now they're using our own infrastructure against us. The LLMs make that stuff look really convincing. And the voice is also no longer a good, reliable kind of like, hey, this sounds like an accent I'm not used to hearing, doesn't work anymore because they sound like you and I. In some cases, they sound exactly like me because I do enough of this stuff publicly that like they can get my voice, run it through an LLM, and it sounds like I'm calling someone. So all of those things create a greater risk for the industry. And the other thing that's happened, why these initiatives with NMFTA are so important, the window's shortened.
Yeah.
Like it used to take days, weeks, months sometimes for those attacks to occur, and now they're happening in minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a really good point. And that's part of the reason that this portal is so important is they used to come in, they used to live in the network, and it maybe they live in the network and not take any action for a while, maybe weeks, maybe even months. Now they're coming in, they're starting to do damage almost immediately. So your time to response has to be much quicker. So our ability to communicate and communicate quickly is that much more important, which again, you don't have time to call everybody. So that's why the threat portal is so important, because we have the ability to quickly communicate to the masses because the bad actors are in there and they are working quickly, where before it was more slow moving, where part of the problem is AI. And we do see a spike with the political unrest that's happening, and it's much more organized, right? Because it is government backed.
Yeah. So like with all of that being said, are there, the importance of sharing this information, your experiences, and it is going to help put together like somewhat of a playbook. Do you see like the evolution of this happening from like in an attack by attack basis, or are there a lot of similarities out here that happen consistently over time? And that's why it's like you need to join stuff like this and share this data, because it's like we can help create that protective layer behind most organizations. Like granted, things are going to change and evolve, but I look at, working in this industry for as long as I have, and, I know right now more than ever, double brokering and fraud is at an all-time high. But as somebody who's brokered tens of thousands of loads in my career, I've got it pretty much boiled down to a couple of key things where I can tell within the first couple of seconds of talking to somebody if they know what they're doing or not, and why I would pass on that capacity. And so it's like there's evolutions of it, but they're also still relying on the path of least resistance, it seems, to kind of get access to that stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff that's it's repeatable in patterns, right? Like when there's things, but the other, you said it, right? Like I can tell. You can tell until you've got 100 phone calls a day and 3,000 emails, and you're like, it looks good enough, right? Like, and those things happen. So the unfortunate thing is both things are true, right? Like there's overlays of patterns that we can look for, and we can do that. And we have lots of automated systems that do that, right? Like whether it's how we train our people or the systems that we put in place to look for that pattern recognition to prevent that stuff. That stuff's great. That used to be enough. But now with the tools they have access to, the speed that they're operating and how widespread it's gotten, there's new and evolving things all of the time. And the broader technology industry does an okay job of sharing information, and you get it from but like, look, if a large software vendor has an exploit, well, they don't want to tell everybody. They don't have a good way to tell their customers while still preventing the threat actors from getting the information. So that stuff all takes time to go through. Whereas what in this partnership that we're trying to do, and what NMFTA is trying to do, is give us a way to share that information as it's happening. Because we will often see a new attack vector 3 to 4 weeks before it's ever been kind of widespread promoted. Like a somewhat generic but realistic example, we were starting to see folks make Teams phone calls via third-party tenants, impersonating our own Teams meetings to try to get people to do stuff, right? They were impersonating the service desk. They were calling somebody via Teams. People get phone calls via Teams, so they didn't think anything of it, right? And we were seeing that probably 3 or 4 weeks before anybody was starting to say, hey, like this is a thing to worry about. Or we'll see Like there's a way that threat actors will sideload code into your web browser, and then it will run inside of your web browser and not trip some of the traditional EDR kind of stuff. And we were seeing that 3 or 4 weeks before people were saying, hey, this is a thing you need to go look at. Here are the patches that you need to employ. So it's a yes and, not an instead of, right? It's the more rapidly we can share information, the better we can help support each other, find ways to deal with these things that maybe are subverting some of those automated or those old patterns, the more protected we are. But I also want to be really clear, nothing we do is 100%, right? Yeah. Like, particularly when you get in whether it's freight fraud or cyber fraud, right? Like, you can put every plan you want in place, but somebody's always going to find a way around it. So the more rapidly we can continue to evolve and adapt helps us better protect everybody.
Yeah. And I look at it like, from my perspective, going to, I think, 5 cybersecurity conferences now at this point with the NMFTA, learning what I've learned, to me, it's like, I feel like most organizations as a whole, their biggest vulnerability is they don't have a plan. Like, and this is just a guy who his IT experiences is restarting my computer when something doesn't work properly. But like, that's been the common theme is it's like, when you don't have a plan, you don't do anything, you don't know how to react. And then in turn, you don't want to go tell anybody because you don't want to seem like, incompetent in your role. I think that's where like you're opening yourself to more and more vulnerabilities. And that's why I see such an ever increasing importance of what is built here with the Freight Fraud Hub and then the threat portal that you guys are creating. Like, educate yourself on this, because the more technology advances, and it's, today is already old. Like, we're already evolving in front of that. You have to stay on top of this stuff. Otherwise, it could legitimately put you out of business.
Yeah. I mean, and not only do you have to have a plan, I mean, that's one of the things we talk about at the conference through the tabletop exercises. Have a plan, practice your plan again, practice restoring your backups. And make sure the plan includes everyone. It can't just be an IT exercise. And then also look at the different threats that have come in through the threat portal. How would that have impacted you? Does your plan cover it? A lot of the things that we hear about that we'll start to see, if we start to see patterns in the threat portal, those will end up in the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub, for example. So, you alluded to it, Chris, last time we spoke. And at that point, this was still in the development phase. And I kind of thought, oh, did somebody tell them about this? But I mean, you were spot on. We're going to take this information, we're going to look for the patterns, and we're going to feed it into the Freight Fraud Prevention Hub as it comes to freight fraud. But what we'll do is we'll definitely look for patterns, and there will always be patterns. Just like the ones that Todd mentioned with the misspelled words. That pattern's been around forever, but the pattern evolves. It gets smarter, it gets better. But the patterns are always, a lot of the patterns are always the same. So really what we want to do is keep track of the evolution of the patterns. And if we can stay 2 weeks ahead of it, 3 weeks ahead of it, that gives us, an advantage that we don't have right now. And our big thing is, how do we get an advantage? And again, if it's a 2 week advantage, that is an advantage that we do not have right now.
Yeah, no, and that's where, I mean, I look at it, and again, it's like, I think most businesses, especially inside of transportation, they're like, we're too small, right? Like we're not on anybody's radar. And I look at it as everybody's on a radar at this point, right? If you use any third-party technology for your business, what is their cybersecurity? Like, they can get access to that. And it's like, I don't ever try and fearmonger, but it's like, even the one truck owner operator, your truck has vulnerabilities on it that could be hacked, right? So it's like, for you to sit here and think like, it'll never happen to me, it's like, that's all they need, right? They need people to have that mentality. And again, nothing about this is fear-based, but Todd, you brought up a good point earlier. I don't think a lot of people understand that we are in a critical infrastructure industry inside of transportation. Like, if you've ever read a history book, what is the first thing they cut off when they were attacking somebody, supply lines, right? They wanted to starve you from the inside out.
Well, and the other thing in that point, right? We're also, you used to be able to bury your head in the sand a little bit, right? Like I've got my walls up, we're good, right? And it no longer matters what size you are. One, because the tools they have, in most cases, most of the things I see, it's not like somebody went, I'm going to go get Estes Express Lines, right? Like they're like, here's a shotgun spray attack because it's really cheap and easy for me to do. I can script it and I can hit everybody out there that's running this piece of software and that it's exposed.
Yeah.
Right. And then they find their way in and they go. Then they figure out who you are, right? Like, or there's targeted attacks at the supply chain. But the other thing is even if you're a small owner operator or a small carrier, right? Like, who are your customers? Mm-hmm. And how are you connected to your customers? Mm-hmm. You may become an attack vector, not because they really care about you, but because they're looking for information about somebody else, right? Or they know you move this critical part for this other person, right? So they shut you down, they impact them, right? Like the more interconnected we get, and that's not going away. Like I make the argument these days, the data is almost as important as moving the freight itself. Mm-hmm. Like the more interconnected we are, the more we have to realize we're all in this together, right? And it doesn't matter if big, small, etc. I get that it can feel overwhelming. The expense can feel overwhelming, but there are ways to do this, particularly just through sharing information where we can help prevent. And if we went back to the social engineering side, a lot of that's free, right? Like that's just awareness. Like telling people to be cautious. Like, hey, if that phone call didn't make sense, it probably didn't make sense. If someone calls you from the service desk and asks you to install something on your computer, hang up, call them back. You know the number for the service desk. Find out if it was actually that person or not. Those things are all okay. Like, and so we encourage folks to do a lot of those sorts of things. And there's very little expense in doing that. So the more that we can do, the more that we can share, and I just keep saying this, I think the better and stronger we all get. Mm-hmm. And it helps protect not only what we're doing, it helps protect our customers. And, with the flag behind you and everything else, right? Like it does help protect the national supply chain, right? And the stuff that we're doing.
Yeah. Because to me, it's like, it's not about who gets credit. I think like it's gotten beyond the point of where it's like we have to collectively as an industry share all of these things that are going on out there, because otherwise, you're like, and that's another thing too. How are you digitally connected to your customers? If you receive an EDI or an API tender from your customer, you are exposed. You are exposing them in some way, shape, or form. And again, it's that piece that most people don't think about. And, for me, the big thing that I always love to reiterate, because I see these things come through, as good as I think I am at prospecting shippers to work with, I'm not good enough to where they call me and email me direct and say, hey, can you come pick up this load for me? I think that's like the biggest red flag that's out there for people on the service provider side of things.
Absolutely.
I guess, with that being said, when is this portion, are you able to say like, when is this portal going to be up and running for people, Joe?
Yeah, so we are targeting end of April. We're going to start a beta phase in April, second week of April. We're going to run a 2-week beta just to make sure we have no issues. And then we're going to open it for sign up for the brokers, the carriers, the supply chain community at the end of April. So look for a press release to come out and some advertisements on our website, nmfta.org. But it is targeted for the end of April.
Perfect. And, I look at it like this, and Todd, I appreciate you joining. And, I'll just say, if Estes Express is sharing all of this data, if they are, have that be all of the, the push that you need to be like, all right, I need to get to be a part of this. They're like if not one of the largest LTL and transportation companies out there. If they're willing to put their name out there publicly, like we are doing this, we all need to get behind something like that.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. And we also, Joe, we meet quarterly.
Yeah.
So we do also have, with a lot of other carriers too, a quarterly cyber meeting that Joe puts on and chairs for us, where we share it. But like, this is the more like, we want to get the immediate information out there. We want to help people in the real time. Because to his point, like we see a breach, Yeah, I ultimately get it to all of the people that are on that committee, but like if there's a thing that we're dealing with in the moment, like I don't have time right then to call everybody, but right then is when they need to know. So this makes it simple, it makes it fast, and it allows us to share information, and it allows us to do it anonymously. So if people are worried about that scarlet letter of cyber, they can avoid that too.
No, and that's perfect. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today. That is going to be it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to put the links to the Freight Fraud Hub in the show notes and everything for you. And then pay attention. We will release more information as it comes when the portal is up and running so people can get involved in that. Again, you guys, collectively as an industry, it's on us to fix this. All right. No one's coming to save us. It's got to be us who's going to put our best foot forward, put these strategies and tactics out there for us all to utilize to help protect the industry as a whole. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Hey, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the bag. Hey, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal when the lane